Hi, Giuliana. Let's take a look at your new set of essays, shall we? Traditional food being replaced by fast food, negative effect on families, individuals, and society. Let's see what you wrote. Experts throughout the developed world have debated whether processed food affects families and societies negatively or not. Some believe that the positive effects of fast food outweigh the downsides. Personally, I strongly disagree. This essay will discuss both sides using examples from the University of Manchester and surveys from Northern England to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, it's very nicely written. I can see that you really followed the template quite closely, so all of that is wonderful. There are a couple of things that I do want to just address with you. First of all, fast food and processed food are not entirely synonyms, okay? Processed food is lots of stuff that has, additives, preservatives, coloring. So anything that's not really whole, clean food, okay? So fast food, however, is, just that. It's the fast food. It's like street food. It's like burgers. It's pizza. It's, French fries that you get out, I don't know, with, whatever, with other street food. Okay, so this is fast food, but processed food is not necessarily street food. I'm sorry, fast food. Okay, so that's one thing. Then, now look at this. This is a to what extent do you agree or disagree essay. You have said that you strongly disagree. Okay? So you don't need to talk about both sides here. You can, and quite frankly, I always recommend that people do talk about both sides, even in an essay like this, but it becomes rather difficult to understand why you are going to talk about both sides when you've told us that you strongly disagree. Okay? You don't need to talk about the other side. If you see some validity in the other side, then you need to address it. But you need to address it in your introduction. So, you know what I want to do? I want to actually read your body paragraphs, and then we'll come back to this issue to see how your introduction can better represent what you are actually developing in your body paragraphs. All right, so let's move on for a moment, and we'll come back to this later. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that replacing home-cooked food with processed food has a significant impact on families' health. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, fast food has a higher calorie density, causing a higher calorie intake than needed. All right, this was a little repetitive, higher calorie density, higher calorie intake. I think there were other ways to write this. Let's see. You could have said that fast food is very dense in calories, causing a higher calorie intake. It's a little different, okay? Secondly, processed food is rich in sugar, fat, and salt, increasing the vulnerability for conditions like diabetes, high cholesterol, and other comorbidities. For example, a recent empirical research by the University Capital IU of Manchester demonstrated that the family purchase of fast food for meals was associated with not overweight, but excess weight, 2 words, of children and parents. It must not be forgotten that although the average weight rose, the availability of nutritious foods and micronutrients decreased. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that parents should care about the quality of food for family mealtimes, preventing further health issues. Okay, grammar is lovely. There was just a couple of little mistakes there. You clearly used the template once again, so very nice job there. It definitely feels very cohesive. Okay. I do have a couple of concerns though. Again, I'm going to hold off on those concerns. I really do want to give your essay a chance to, to read it first, and then I'll talk about all this. On the other hand, although there is a case for diabetes, high cholesterol, and even indigestion problems associated with junk food, the impact of the benefits for busy family cannot be overstated. This is largely because nowadays families are mostly dual income households and time is precious. Having quick meals readily available is therefore very convenient. For example, an extensive survey amongst families in northern England reported less behavioral difficulties during meal times with fast food because children prefer it over home cooked dishes, facilitating both quantity and quality time. What a lovely sentence. Consistent with this line of thinking is that interactive talks during meal times socialize children and are equally important. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt that fast food has also possible positive impacts on families. Okay. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that the consumption of fast food resulting in childhood obesity has become a major societal concern. It is predicted that health problems associated with our diets will increasingly grow in importance. Okay. So the good news, Giuliana, is that your writing is very good. The grammar, the vocabulary, it flows so nicely. It's a joy to read in many respects. Unfortunately, there are some issues that we do have to talk about. Now, the first issue is one that I've already raised. It's the fact that your introduction wasn't entirely logical. It doesn't really make sense when you have a "to what extent do you agree or disagree" essay, when you tell us just "I strongly disagree," and then after that you tell us you're going to discuss both sides. It would have made more sense, now that I've read your essay, if you had said, some believe that the positive effects of fast food outweigh the downsides. Full stop. In my opinion, how about, you know what? No, let me go one step back. Some believe that the positive effects of fast food and outweigh the downsides, and personally, I strongly disagree. Yet, I recognize that there are some valuable effects that fast food provides. Okay, so this way you're showing us, essentially you have to provide a map, something like a blueprint for your essay. And since you spent this whole paragraph about these positives, that needs to be reflected in your introduction. So to say that you strongly disagree is actually it's not 100% in line with what you actually developed in your body paragraphs. So this is essentially what you need to change. You need to show some that you're somewhere, I don't want to say in the middle, but you're at least like 70-30 or 60-40. How else could you have said it? Some believe that the positive effects of fast food outweigh the downsides, and while I disagree, I do believe that fast food has positive effects. Okay, so that's the one thing I want to talk about. Okay, so now I want to talk about the other issue that was very, very important in this essay. It talks about the negative impact on families, individuals, and society. I saw in your entire essay that you only focused on families. Family health, where else was it? Children and parents, family. So it was really just focused on this. Families, socializing children, families. So again, both paragraphs were really focused on families, and you're missing part of what you're supposed to be talking about. You're also supposed to be talking about individuals and society. So I know you're probably thinking, okay, well, how can I possibly do this? Well, there are a handful of ways you can go about this. One thing to do is, since you want to talk about both sides of the argument, you could spend a paragraph talking about how it is negative for families, how it is negative for individuals, and how it is negative for society. Now, don't think that you have to provide 3 different main ideas. You can talk about families, and then you can say something like, this in turn affects society in general, like so. Okay? And then you can do the same thing for individuals. And then of course you can do the same thing here with the positives. Okay, so what could be the positives based on what you told us here? For society, I don't know. I can't really think of one right now, but that's another way that you could do it. Now, alternatively, what you could do is you could say, for example, that I do think it has a negative impact on individuals and society, but as far as family is concerned, I think that fast food may in fact have a positive impact. And that's what you talked about in this paragraph, isn't it? So you could say that it has a negative impact on health, on individuals, on, things like diabetes and cholesterol and all those other things you talked about. This in turn has an effect on our healthcare system, which is a problem for all of society. All right. So you can talk about that in one paragraph, and then you can say, yet, despite what has been said, there are some benefits that fast food provides to families. And then you can talk about all these positives. And that's also a really nice way to deal with this essay, because you're showing the complexity of the matter. And that is the hallmark of a higher band essay. Okay, when you recognize and you can develop these complexities. Okay. So that's one way that I would have recommended developing this. Okay, I hope that that's clear. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. I do want to move on to your task 1. All right, so let's move on and talk about shoes in the 9 different countries. Let's see what you wrote. The bar chart, it's not a bar graph. We usually call them pie charts, bar charts, but line graphs. So the bar chart shows the shoe sales of 2 different leather colors in 9 different countries in Europe in 2018. Fine. In 2018, the most brown leather shoes were sold in Poland with slightly over 125,000, closely followed by Germany and Hungary with 125,000 and 120,000 respectively. In France, there were twice as many brown leather shoes sold than black ones without the. Okay. Similarly, in Poland, sales of black leather shoes accounted for only half of the ones of brown color. Okay. In Belgium, only very few brown leather shoes were sold, and with 5,000 shoes, not only by far the lowest number of shoe sales among the line countries, but also showing the widest gap between the 2 shoe types. There was only a little difference between black and brown shoe sales in Hungary. Overall, brown leather shoes were more popular in the represented European countries except for Belgium and the UK, where the black leather shoes were sold more often than in 2018. Okay, I do want to talk about this. By the way, it's really very helpful if you can include the image in your answer. I'm going to pull it up now so that we can refer to it, because I did have a little issue with some of this. Okay, so just give me a minute and I will find the chart. Okay, so I hope you don't mind. I've actually attached it to your answer. It's really helpful to me because I need to refer to it. Now I want to go through this again. You started off with Poland. Brown leather shoes in Poland. Okay, fine. You started off here. And then you talked about Hungary. And after that, you talked about France, but you didn't give us any data, right? Okay, no, I'm sorry. Forgive me. So you talked about Poland, and you also talked about Hungary and Germany, and then you talked about France, but you never gave us any data. And then you went back to Poland, and you talked about black shoes, okay? Then, Belgium. You talked about Belgium. You said there were very few brown leather shoes sold. Let me see. And then I didn't understand the rest of it, but then you told us that there was very little difference between brown and black in Hungary. So, why am I pointing this out? Number 1, you did not mention all of the countries. There was no mention, let's see. There was no mention of Ireland from what I could tell. I don't believe you mentioned Holland. I don't recall seeing anything about Italy. Now, why is this important? Number one, this is important because these are some of your categories. And your categories are all part of your key features. If you look at the band descriptors for task 1, you will see that it says not all key features are presented. And when that happens, you cannot get above a 4. Now, that does not, in task achievement, okay, just to be clear, that does not mean you have to give data about all of these, okay? You've got 9 different countries, 2 different color leathers, it's 18 pieces of information. You do not need to talk about all, but you do at least need to mention that you've got these different categories. Just as you mention that you've got brown and black leather shoes, you also have to mention the 9 countries by name so that we know what countries you're referring to and we know the kind of information that you have on this chart. Okay, so that's the first thing. You missed a couple of the countries. You need to mention them by name. What some students like to do is they say in 9 different countries in Europe, and then in parentheses, they actually list them. This is a very safe way of doing this because at the very least, you avoid this band 4 category, all right? And at the very least, you're looking at a band 5, okay? But of course, if you have an overview, then you're kind of out of that dangerous territory as well. So if you have an overview and if you have mentioned all of these categories, then that really puts you in a better position. Okay, so that was the first thing I want to talk to you about. Now, the second thing that I want to talk to you about is a little bit the way you organize your paragraphs. So not only did you neglect to mention some of the countries, but I also thought that you didn't really select the important pieces of information here. Let's take a look at the data that you gave us. You gave us this 125,000 for Poland. Then you talked about Germany and Hungary. We don't have any data about France. And then we have this data here for Belgium. So of these 18 pieces of data, we only have 4. That's not really a substantial amount. Okay, now I'm going to give you a suggestion on one way that you can do this chart. It is not the only way, but it is one way, and I'd like you to take a look at that. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to these numbers here along the side. Okay, they're going to be your guide. One of the first things you want to do is you want to start off with the highest number. The highest number in the entire chart is actually not Poland, but it's actually Hungary with the black leather shoes. So you could say that and you want to emphasize this. You want to emphasize those highs and emphasize those lows. Don't just give me the number, oh, it was 125,000, but actually tell me this was the highest figure of any shoe color in the countries in question. So I would start off with here. I would start off with the most shoes sold across the 9 European countries were black leather shoes in Hungary with a figure of approximately 140,000. This was followed by black leather shoes in Italy. So you can tell that I'm going to talk about just black leather shoes. So regarding black leather shoes, this was followed by Italy at 125,000. And just above 100,000 were Belgian, were black leather shoes in Belgium. The least black leather shoes were sold in France at whatever that is, 35,000. Okay, the remaining countries all sold between, what's this number here? 60,000 and 100,000. And then you're done. Then you can go on to a paragraph about brown leather shoes. You can say, then you can start the paragraph like this. You can say, 4 countries registered over 100,000 brown leather shoes sold. They were Poland with 135,000, followed by Hungary, Germany, and Italy at over 100,000. The least brown leather shoes were sold in Belgium at around 5,000. And the remaining countries, and this time if you want you can name them, France, UK, Ireland, and Holland, all sold between 50 and 100,000 shoes. So you see what I've done here is it's all about focusing on those important pieces of information, the highs, the lows, and then when you've got a lot of figures here in the middle, you just kind of group them together in a range. And so you're giving some awareness to the fact that not all of these figures are terribly important, yet you're not neglecting them entirely as well. Okay, so Giuliana, I hope that that's helpful. I hope that that gives you a way to think about charts like this where you've got a lot of information. If you have any questions, please do let us know in your email. I thought I saw a question. I actually want to look at that now. I thought I saw a question in your email, so let me take a look at that. Okay, no, that's my error. All right, so if you do have any questions, please let us know. And so go ahead and correct these, and I'll be looking forward to your next set of essays. Good luck.